Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my podcast. This is episode number 4, titled How I Arrived into the Real Estate Business. But before getting started, let me remind you that you can go to YouTube, type in Fisher Realtors, and all of the episodes will come up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I would also like to remind you to leave your comments, whether you like it, dislike, or if you have questions. As a matter of fact, I had one question posed to me after episode number 3, and I will address it immediately following this episode. So now let's get started with episode number 4. You may remember that after leaving episode number 3, I was a little saddened, but I was extremely happy, overjoyed about leaving Lincoln Elementary School. Keep in mind that Lincoln Elementary School was named after our 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. You will also remember that Abraham Lincoln was given credit for freeing the slaves in January 1865, and also that he was assassinated 3 months later by John Wilkes Booth, and when he was attending a play at the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. You will also remember that that was my first experience of being called a nigger. And now I'm back to diversity. My first year at Roosevelt Junior High School, I'm in the 7th grade, and I'm able to release some of this stored up anger that I received at Lincoln Elementary School. I had a different attitude at my first year in junior high school. It was considered to be a negative attitude. It was the attitude of payback. And all of the students that attended Lincoln Elementary School who were calling me a nigger, it was payback time. Everything just about had changed back to establishing new relationship or friendships, also reconnecting with old friends that I had witnessed to have at Washington and Meastrom Elementary Schools. I became one of the leaders of a group, a club. It was called the Dominos. Today, it would probably be called a gang, because we specialized in fighting. We didn't do drugs. We didn't do burglary or robbery or anything such as that. Our minds were on fighting. We fought. We would actually walk from Roosevelt Junior High School up 8th Street. Roosevelt Junior High School was there on 8th and Bissell. You may remember, some of you, that it was closed down and it became Gumper's Continuation School, and later on, right now, it's a part of Sylvester Greenwood Academy. Nevertheless, we would walk from Roosevelt Junior High School from 8th and Bissell, crossing McDonald Avenue, crossing Nevin Avenue and Barrett, and we would arrive at the 8th Street Park, now called Pogo Park. And that's where all of the fighting would start. We would fight just about every day. As a matter of fact, when at Roosevelt, when they heard that it was going to be a fight, they would come and get me out of the class. When we wasn't fighting others, we would be fighting one another, but we called it yoking because we had rules with it. We would wear these leather gloves with fur inside, well, fake fur, if you will. But we would yoke. We had to stay in practice. Think about it. We called it fighting shape, not swimming, not basketball or running. Or however, that you had to allow some time, but we never would run away from a fight. But think about it. If you are fighting and just never punching, but fighting, holding your guards up to defend yourself, you need energy and you need a practice on holding them up to defend yourself. Think about what would happen if you got tired and you lowered your guards, got beat up. So anyway, we were the Dominoes, and some of the Dominoes consisted of, for one, like Jake Malone. Jake Malone was the son of a Baptist preacher at the Providence Missionary Baptist Church, where my father was also a deacon. We would spend a lot of time together growing up. He was at my #1 guy. He was taller than most, but far the heaviest among us all. Loyal, dedicated, and devoted. Then we had, wait a minute, Jake Malone grew up on 2nd between Nevin and Barry with his 3 sisters, Clara, Malone, Louise, and Nadine. Later on, his cousin, Horace Hobson, came to live with him. They lived right next door to the Minix family, Carolyn Minix, Jennifer Minix, Patricia Minix, Riley Minix, Charles Minix, Wayne Minix, and Glorious. We called her Dovey. Then the next person, member of the Dominoes, his name was Spud, Ellis Williams. He grew up on 9th Street with his parents, his sister, Irene, and his brother, Vivi. Next door to the McCoy family, Patricia McCoy, Ralph McCoy, Nelwyn McCoy, Monica McCoy, Ray McCoy, and Teddy McCoy, a few other brothers right there. Spud was our philosopher. He was very bright, could talk about everything, but he could fight. He was loyal, dedicated, and devoted. A great guy. And he added a part to the Dominoes that we didn't have and we also needed. Then we had Boo Nut. I won't go into detail talking about how he arrived at that name, or we arrived at that name. Cornelius Mitchell, he grew up on 6th Street, close to Pennsylvania. This guy was built like Hercules, muscular, he could fight, he could play any sport, everything. He had a dog named Chinook. When Boo Nut would fight, the dog would fight. He would go all around and everything with his dogs. And then we had Joe Genda. Joe Genda grew up on 5th Street, right close to the Cartwrights Market. His father was a roofer. His father spent a lot of time talking to us as we circulated around the different homes. Joe was a lawyer, devoted. Notice I use this all the time because it's true. Lawyer, dedicated, and devoted. Joe Genda. He was probably one of the first to own a car as we grew up a little older. This Domino's stayed for a few years. And then we had S.D. Hughes. S.D. Hughes was very unique. He was the taller of all of the Dominoes. He had the gift of the gab. He could fight. And one thing about the Hughes family, Sam and T, and I say that with affection, Mr. and Mrs. Hughes, they always encouraged us to do better, get an education. As a matter of fact, this family was probably the brightest among all of the Dominoes with our friends. Their sister Deborah was extremely bright. SD was bright. As a matter of fact, SD became the best low hurdler in the state of California. Clarence was extremely bright. He attended a school with my sister who was a year younger, could fight. We called him Goo. And then the pride of our joy was their younger brother, Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was a great young man coming up, and we all took pride in Howard. And then we had Roy Lee Bohannon. Roy Lee Bohannon couldn't fight. Now let me go back. The Hughes family grew up on 8th Street, right between Ripley and the street of Barrett, right in that particular area. Roy Lee Bohannon, back to him, he could not fight, but he was somewhat like the glue with us in the Dominoes. He could sing. Roy Lee Bohannon could really sing, and he could tell jokes. At that time, we would get in his garage. They didn't own a car. They lived on 2nd Street, right down the street from the Malones and the Minix family in that same block next door to Gwen and baby sister. It was so different because in that garage, we would sometimes shoot dice for 2 and 3 pennies, didn't have any money. And we would flip coins. We were at that time drinking white pork, and we would flip a coin to see who would drink the poison to pour the little can of lemon juice in it. And it was called white pork or lemon juice. And some of you may remember that song, White Pork or Lemon Juice. And then we had Eugene Jefferson. Eugene Jefferson would rather talk out of a fight, but if he had to fight, hey, it was going on. He was a dresser, put emphasis on being sharp all the time. And then the last one in the Dominoes was Carver Earl. Carver Earl, if you were a friend of Carver Earl, you had one of the best friends. I said all about the Dominoes of loyalty, dedicated and devoted. This guy, Carver Earl, was most devoted, dedicated friend you could ever have. That concludes the Dominoes, and this episode is called, the subtitle is the Dominoes. And now I would like to come back and address the question, a great question that was posed to me at the end of a podcast, episode 3. And the question was, Joe, how does all these people's names that you call connect in helping you to arrive into the real estate business? And I'm going to give you the short story on that without doing the entire podcast. And that is that if you recall in episode number 1, I had mentioned that we all are products of our past. And whether you are happy with yourself today or unhappy with yourself today is because of how you have lived your life in the past. And all of these people, names that I can remember since I was very young, they helped to shape my personality, me, for this calling. I call this a calling to be in the real estate because when I was younger, I never dreamt of being a real estate broker, less long an agent or anything like that. I felt and I feel that it's a calling from God. In the book of Romans, in the 8th chapter, verse number 28, it said, know that God causes all things to work together for the good to those who love God and to those who are called according to his purpose. And I feel that this is his purpose. As you know, real estate is the largest purchase in anyone's life. A FHA down payment, 3%, and closing costs could be at an average price of $400,000 or $500,000, could be $15,000, $20,000. Keep in mind that you'll pay on that house for 30 years. Nothing compares to this. And we as people, and especially African Americans, need more people helping with sincerity, with the love to help our people and not take advantage of them. So I consider this to be a calling, and I'm thankful to be in it and be with me now on episode number 5 as we move forward on how I arrived into the real estate business. I want to thank you today. God bless you, and look forward to seeing you again on episode number 5. Thank you.